This week on thetruThaboutCars.com, we are out here taking a look at the 2016 Toyota Tacoma. The last Tacoma was starting to get a little bit old, so we get a completely redesigned front end for this generation. We also have these optional projector headlamps in our limited model. The front grille is this much larger and bolder design, very similar to what we see in the larger Toyota pickup trucks. Now, an interesting touch up front is that we still basically have a more traditional bumper design in the front than we find in many vehicles out there, although it really is just in this front section. It actually tapers back right here below the fog lamps. As you'd expect, there are two different cabs and two different beds available in the Tacoma for 2016. This particular one is the shorter bed and the longer cab combination. Now, you can get a long cab and long bed combination that would actually be a little bit longer than a base Ram 1500. Not all cab and bed combinations are available in every trim, so you should consult the Toyota website for more information on that. Like the front, the rear end gets a redesign for 2016 as well. There are several different tail lamp arrangements depending on whether you get the limited, the off-road model, or just your regular old Tacoma. Since ours is the limited, we get these clear lenses. When properly equipped with the optional towing package with the receiver and the wiring harnesses right here, you can tow up to 6,800 pounds in your Tacoma, which is an awful lot for a compact pickup truck. Also an awful lot for a compact pickup truck is a maximum payload rating of 1,440 pounds. Under the hood, we still find a four-cylinder engine. It's a 2.7-liter four-cylinder, producing 159 horsepower and 180 pound-feet of torque. You'll notice that's a decent amount less power than we find in the brand new Chevy Colorado. Now, this engine is mated to a 5-speed manual still, so if you want to row your own, this is one of the few options available in the pickup truck segment, regardless of size. For the rest of us out there, there is a 6-speed automatic transmission, which helps make the most of that small four-cylinder. The big change for 2016 is that Toyota has finally replaced their old V6 in the Tacoma. This now uses the same 3.5-liter V6 engine that we find in a wide variety of Toyota and Lexus models. In this vehicle, it produces 278 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque. Now, the big thing you'll notice here is that 265 pound-feet of torque comes on about 600 RPM higher than the outgoing engine. Now, on the flip side of that, fuel economy is improved and we get a new 6-speed automatic transmission, which helps make the most of the power we get in this engine. As before, you can get four-wheel drive on basically every version of the Tacoma, including the manual transmission 4-cylinder model. With all of these changes, fuel economy is obviously up for this year, but it is a little bit lower than you might think. It's really not that big of a leap in terms of fuel economy from this model on up to some of those efficient V6 entries that we find in the full-size pickup truck segment. Now, if you want a compact pickup truck with the highest fuel economy, then your only option really would be that brand new diesel from General Motors. On the inside, the Tacoma gets a restyle to look a little bit more like the rest of the Toyota family. We get a steering wheel that looks like Toyota's larger truck. On the flip side, because large portions of the Tacoma structure did not change, we still find a seating position that's very similar to the outgoing models, which means this seat bottom cushion is very close to the floor. We get somewhat smaller doors than we'll find on some of the other options out there, like the new GM compact trucks. We do have a moderately sized glove compartment over here on the passenger side, and a dashboard that has been completely restyled versus the outgoing model. I find the design a little bit busy, but we do have the latest infotainment systems from Toyota available right up here on top. Dual zone climate control and heated seats available, along with push button start. Toyota has relocated their usual button bank to right there below the dual zone climate control. We have a very traditional console shifter and a handbrake as well. On the driver's side, we have a new instrument cluster with a color multifunction screen right there in the middle. And zooming on out, we have that same steering wheel I showed you earlier. Rear seat comfort is good in our limited model with the optional leather upholstery, and we have some additional storage right here under those rear seats. We also find some additional storage right back here behind the seats themselves. Out on the road, the Tacoma feels like a more refined version of the last generation Tacoma. This is a little bit faster, going from 0 to 60 in 7.9 seconds, thanks to that new V6 engine we get under the hood and the 6-speed automatic. Now, on the downside, it is not quite as fast as the GMC Canyon or Chevy Colorado with their new V6 engine and their 6-speed automatic, but it is a little bit faster than even entries like the Ram 1500 with its 8-speed automatic. That's because this is a decent amount lighter than those full-size pickup truck options out there, even the Ford F-150, now that it's all aluminum. That pays dividends in the Tacoma with better handling than we get in your average full-size pickup truck. I would actually say it's right on par with the Chevy Colorado and the GMC Canyon as well. When it comes to braking, we ran from 60 to 0 in 132 feet, which is very similar to your average entry-level Honda Accord. Now, the reason for that longer braking distance has to do with the tire selection and the overall weight of the Tacoma. It really doesn't have anything to do with the drum brakes we get in the back. Now, I haven't been able to verify this, but Toyota claims that the rear drum units in this pickup truck are a little bit more resistant to sand and dirt when you're off-roading, One thing I can confirm, however, is that drum brakes are less expensive to maintain, repair, and purchase in the first place. So it likely saves Toyota a little bit of money, but it's going to save you a little bit of money in long-term maintenance as well. When it comes to the handling and the ride, we're getting exactly what I would expect out of any compact pickup truck with a ground clearance that's this high. It does tend to roll a decent amount in the corners. It feels a little bit ponderous compared to your average sedan, but again, it is a pickup truck. Now this is going to handle better than your average full-size American pickup truck simply because it weighs less. Cabin noise has been improved over the previous generation. This cabin definitely feels a little bit more civilized than the last generation, and fuel economy has also been improved. Now on the downside, fuel economy is not as high as I would like, and it's definitely not as high as some of those full-size pickup trucks out there either. We've been averaging 19 miles per gallon in this model. The EPA says we should be getting 20, but you will find very similar scores in V6 entries like the Ram 1500 or certain versions of the Ford F-150 V6. And of course, that's before we even start talking about the brand new diesel Colorado or diesel GMC Canyon, or of course that existing diesel Ram 1500. All three of those will actually give you better fuel economy averages than this Toyota Tacoma. Now they will be running on diesel, and you will have to pay nearly $5,000 for each of those engine options, but if you're after fuel economy, those would be your options. Toyota's long and well-deserved reputation for building practically indestructible pickup trucks will set you back when it comes time to buy your Tacoma. The 2016 model starts just over $23,000. That's about $3,000 more than GM's pickup truck starting price and about $5,000 more than you'll find the Nissan Frontier. Obviously, this is much newer than the Nissan Frontier. However, it's just about the same age as the completely redesigned General Motors compact pickup trucks, and a large portion of this is not that much different than the last generation Tacoma. Now, interestingly enough, the very fact that this is not a clean sheet redesign is a reason to buy the Tacoma, because a lot of what you see under the skin in this model is tried and true, including the engines and the transmissions. Toyota has been using them for a while, and that also goes for the 3.5-liter V6 engine. It may be new to the Tacoma, but it's not new to Toyota by any stretch, and it is very reliable. That's also why Toyota is still using drum brakes in the back of their Tacoma, because drum brakes are very reliable. It's a tried and true design, and honestly, people don't tend to tow with their compact pickup trucks like this, so it doesn't make that much of a difference for the average person. The stopping distances and fade resistance in this pickup truck are really not that different from the competition. However, if you do tow or you put a lot of weight in the bed of your truck, then you will start to notice a little bit of a difference between this and the options out there with disc brakes in the back. Nissan's Frontier is obviously the inexpensive option in this segment, but its four-cylinder engine is definitely underpowered compared to everybody else. The V6 engine in the Nissan is very thirsty, very similar to the outgoing engine that we had in last year's Tacoma. It wouldn't be my pick in this segment. Obviously, with the low pricing on the Nissan, you can get into the V6 for less than a V6 Tacoma. However, the V6 is quite thirsty over there in the Nissan, and it is still using a 5-speed automatic, and Toyota has finally joined the club with their 6-speed auto. The interior of the Nissan is also looking decidedly old. It is definitely the last generation of Nissan product. It's very obvious when you take a look at the steering wheel, the radio systems, the controls inside the cabin, etc. The Chevy Colorado may not have the indestructible reputation the Tacoma does, but it would actually be my pick in this particular segment. Its 4-cylinder engine is more modern than we find in this vehicle. It actually produces a decent amount more power, even though it is smaller in terms of displacement. I also prefer the way the GM 6-speed automatic transmission shifts. Although I think the Tacoma is a little bit more attractive on the outside, I think the Colorado is more attractive on the inside, and that's where I'm spending most of my time. The seats are also a little bit more comfortable than we find in the Tacoma. When it comes to the V6 options, we find a little bit more power in the GM 3.6-liter V6 than in this Toyota 3.5-liter V6. I also like the way the GM 6-speed automatic transmission shifts. It seems like that vehicle spends a little bit less time hunting for gears. The GM pickup truck has an ever so slightly higher towing capacity, but honestly, they're fairly equal. Now, the GM pickup truck does have something that this truck does not have, and that is that 2.8-liter turbo diesel engine. However, that 2.8-liter turbo diesel is actually more expensive to add to your Canyon than adding Chrysler's 3-liter turbo diesel to their Ram 1500. The Ram 1500 diesel is very smooth. It's a 6-cylinder diesel. It produces more power and more torque than we find in the GMC Canyon pickup truck or its sister ship, the Chevy Colorado, and Chrysler mates it to an 8-speed automatic transmission. Perhaps thanks to that 8-speed automatic in the Ram, fuel economy is actually very similar, the Ram 1500 with the diesel to the Chevy Colorado with its diesel, even though the Ram is a much bigger truck. So if you're looking at that diesel in this particular segment, I would actually say, as much as I like it, skip it and get the Ram 1500 with the EcoDiesel engine. However, if you're just looking for the average entry in this segment, I would say go for the GMC Canyon. I think it's actually my favorite entry in this segment. It's a little bit more than the comparable Chevy Colorado, but I like the way it looks a little bit better. If you're looking for the most reliable or indestructible pickup truck, it probably would be this Tacoma, but for me, it comes in a number 2. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes of thetruthaboutcars.com. Go ahead and click that subscribe button at the bottom of your screen, and I'll see you next week.